OTB's The Hurling Pod with James Skehill and Paul Murphy.
Tá craobhna here in an Ashangaillam. People of Galway, we love you.
I don't want to leave the people of Waterford down, you know, because they're my life, you know. People of Waterford are my life, you know, and I love me county, you know.
We love John Mullen.
It's almost like they're afraid to kind of go on hurl and just let themselves express themselves. It's like as if they're nearly afraid to make a mistake, and sometimes you have to make a mistake and just throw off that bit of nervousness and have a go.
Yeah, it's pure constipated hurling.
Welcome along to episode 21 of the Hurling Pod. It is our All-Ireland final preview special. This one doesn't need much of a hard sell, really. It is the first meeting between Kilkenny and Limerick in a final since 2007. The Cats won back then by 219 to 115. The only player who's still around from that game is TJ Reid, Kilkenny's hero from their semi-final victory against Clare a couple of weeks ago. Prior to that, the teams hadn't met in the final since 1974. This will be Limerick's fourth appearance in 5 seasons in the final, missing out in 2019 when they lost out to Kilkenny in the semi-finals of the championship. They will be bidding to win 3 in a row in the All-Ireland for their first time in their history, a feat that was last achieved by Kilkenny back in 2008. Kilkenny, it feels like a major drought as well. They haven't lifted the Liam McCarthy since 2015, but if they do so this coming Sunday, it'll be a remarkable 12th for Brian Cody. It is a mouth-watering final ahead. Delighted to say James Skell's with me. James, how are you getting on?
Very well, guys. How are you?
And I have to give Paul Murphy his full title now. All-Ireland Hurling Championship, 4 medals. All-Ireland Intermediate Hurling Championship, All-Ireland Under-21, All-Ireland Club Junior Hurling Championship with Danesford, and also now an All-Ireland Junior Football Championship winner after Kilkenny's victory against New York, 3-12 to 1-9. Paul Murphy, it's a good CV you've put together of All-Ireland medals there, but where does this junior football title in the first for Kilkenny rank among them?
Sure, look, it's, I don't know, tough trying to rank them all. Like I was explaining to lads during the week that like my probably most important All-Ireland was the Junior Club All-Ireland one with Danesford in 2007. But just, you know, there's so many reasons for it. But what I was explaining to lads basically is that it's nothing to do with how many people are in the stadium or anything to do with that. It's just, you know, being on a journey with a group of lads, getting to play in Croke Park and taking home a bit of silverware. So, look, it's somewhere in the middle of them there. I'm not going to tell lads it's the greatest one I ever won. But we had a brilliant day yesterday. We had a brilliant weekend. And there was lads yesterday coming away from Croke Park 10 feet tall, because I think a lot of lads never probably thought that they wouldn't have an opportunity to be in Croke Park as part of a team, to maybe take home a bit of their silverware. Like, it was a sunny day in Croke Park, playing before one of the biggest games in the GAA calendar, Kerry and Dublin. And like a big one for us was after the game. We were all celebrating, we all thought it was great, and lads were kind of humming and hawing about, will we go and do a lap of honour? And sure, we just said, look, come on, we'll go and do it. And the Kerry and Dublin supporters, the handful of people that were in there before the game, like, people started standing up and just clapping and acknowledging that you'd won a cup. Like, so there was lads who were delighted. It was absolutely brilliant. So to be part of that, I had a great day yesterday. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, and look, watching the game on GA Go, you seem to have a reasonably free role, despite the fact you were in the number 3 shirt. You were allowed to kind of wander around and sweep a little bit. Was that a deliberate tactic to give you a bit of freedom when you were in possession? No, it was, I suppose the way football is just that teams drop back that little bit more, and the full back line maybe find themselves free. And at times I was marking, but then there was times where you'd rotate. Maybe a cornerback would make a run up the pitch and he'd come back, and then you'd say, listen, you sit there on the 14, mark the man, and I'll just sit out a little bit further, and then maybe getting 1 or 2 balls. So there, you know, it's kind of 50-50 for the game. I was marking a guy for, you know, for a bit of it, but then at the same time you just find yourself free. So the way football is, you just go and move around the pitch and try and get yourself on the ball. So it wasn't a deliberate tactic by us by any means. I think it's just the way, I suppose, football is played at the moment, and the way the teams drop back. Because I was wondering, was this a case of, you were talking about being a forward earlier this year and then inevitably end up in the full back line again? I was wondering, were you just kind of frustrated having to play there and went, right, I'm just going to bomb forward? No, not at all. Like, the lads kind of explained it to me that obviously, like, I mean, again, it goes back to football now, that even if you are playing full back, it's not that you stand on the edge of the D and you just stand there. Like, you know, you look at any games, there's players all over the pitch, including goalkeepers, bombing forward now. So it was really just a case of, okay, you're playing full back, but you have license to, when we're in possession, go and support the play going forward. Didn't do it a whole lot in Abbottstown the other night. So then I was just kind of conscious that, you know, make a few runs up the pitch. I suppose coming from deep, maybe break an old tackle and get through into the New York's half and pop off a pass. So I just came through once or twice. I went for a shot at one stage and I went wide. So I kind of said, right, I won't keep shooting now for the rest of the game. But I was slightly heartened when we watched the second game. Brian Fenton hit a wide into Hill 16, so I didn't feel too bad about myself, and so did Davy Clifford. So I was like, sure, look, even the greats do it as well. So I didn't feel too bad about myself there. It's the only way I could get my own name into Brian Fenton and Davy Clifford in football. So that's the only I could do.
Some very decent players in your team too. Your free taker has got a lovely style of free taking, particularly in the first half. He popped over some lovely scores into the Hill 16 end. I thought Mick Kenny was really, really good during the game too. I mean, like we talk about Kilkenny football and what's potentially there. There's some nice footballers in that team, Paul. Yeah, that's it. And you look, I've been saying it to lads that there's really good footballers in Kilkenny, and some are in the woodwork, and some we've got them out of the woodwork. But I'd like to make Kenny has been around, and Mick Malone. They're probably two of the main lads for us. Ger Malone as well. But they're really good footballers, and they'd be competing on, if they're in any other county, they'd be pushing for places on really any county. Let's say outside the top 4 or something. That they would be putting their hand up for a jersey with those teams, and I think a lot of other players who maybe are in the woodwork are looking at that now, going, maybe I will play this, and like let's say in the years going forward. But anybody who was at the game in Abbottstown on Friday night, nobody came away from that game thinking it was a bad game of football. It was a great game. I think it was 3-11 to 2-9. It finished up. Lots of goals, lots of really open play. But we heard from the London people and from the New York people in Warwickshire and all neutrals that were there, they were shockingly surprised that that we had a structure, that we had a system, that players are well able to play. Okay, the handling might have been great at times, but lads were going, actually, you do have a core of players here that you can actually play. So that is there, it's in Kilkenny, and I think at the moment it's just a matter of saying, look, this is something to make it attractive for really good players and more players to put their hand up and say, actually, I will play and I will be involved, because there's many more Mick Kennys there's many more Mick Malones there that could be the core of a Kilkenny football team. There was a bit of compromise to make sure this happened. The training on the Monday, the fact it was a short season was there to attract players in too. It'll probably take a little bit more commitment if Kilkenny want to work back up the levels, and particularly talk about maybe getting back to the National Football League after a decade away. Is there a chance to actually build on this, or what is the hope among your panel about where you might actually go from here? Yeah, the hope is among the panel certainly is that the move will be made to step back into Division 4 at some stage. Like, not necessarily saying next year. Like, I do believe that there are players again in Kilkenny that Kilkenny could step into Division 4 next year, no problem, if we knew those players would be involved. But it may be a short turnaround to do that. But certainly within the next 2 years anyway, I think Kilkenny could step back into Division 4, and that would be the plan. And like, I think, like you said there, our training was mostly on Monday nights. Every player that you saw on the pitch yesterday, or even on the panel, is training 3 nights a week with their own club. There was times there where we were training Monday night football, Tuesday night with your club. You might have Wednesday night off, Thursday night you'd have a football match, Friday you're with your club, and then Sunday. That was the general routine. So you might be playing 2 or 3 matches a week. That's not sustainable going forward. So, like, realistically, what has to happen is that clubs have to understand that if Kilkenny are to go back into Division 4 in football, these players have to be given the space to actually go and train consistently with the football team, and that's a bit of ground that we have to earn back from the hurling. But it has to happen to afford players the opportunity, because there are players who want to play in Division 4, and when we were on the road show there 2 weeks ago, and we're chatting to Podge Collins and Colin Collins afterwards, I was saying to them, like, Colin Collins' boys were disappointed after losing to Derry, understandably enough. But I was saying to them, I said, lads, Kilkenny's goal and dream at the moment is the day we get to tug out against Clare, against Limerick, against all these. That's our goal at the moment. Like, so each team's and county's goals are relative to their own, but that's where we are at the moment. And like, after the game we were saying it absolutely is achievable. It 100% is achievable at the moment. And I think now, if they want it to happen, now is the time to do it, because there's a little bit of attention on it at the moment. And maybe the groundwork is laid now to actually go and, right, we'll make a crack at getting back in Division 4 and put a bit of shape on this. Look, it looks like you really enjoyed yourselves as well. I was looking at the picture which you put up with a kind of a sense of irony last night outside Nolan Park with the home of football and bringing the cup back. As much as we'll kind of joke around that, at the same time, obviously you guys has a bit of crack around this as well. It's an unusual championship where it's 2 games in 3 days as well. That's it. Like, no one's under any other illusion as to what the whole year and where Kilkenny football is and everything. It's great to just be talking about it in a positive light. Look, it was a junior final, but nevertheless it was an All-Ireland medal. It's an All-Ireland Cup. It's it is what it is, and it's a positive step forward. I think the whole thing about it is, look, lads appreciate that, like, especially with the week that's in it. Kilkenny are going to try and win an All-Ireland at the highest level in hurling.
But nevertheless, we have a group of players here that are going about it, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek as well. Like, I put up the Oak obviously as a bit of a laugh because the bunting is up for the All-Ireland week and the jersey is up, and Nolan Park, you say the name Nolan Park, you think hurling, but I suppose it's all just the fact that we were enjoying our day, we were enjoying our weekend, and that we brought a football trophy back to Nolan Park. Well, we're only, I suppose lads were dropping the gear bags there last night before heading down to town, but yeah, it was just I suppose having a bit of a crack, and I think, look, people are enjoying it. The reaction's been very positive in terms of lads saying fair play, well done. And even yesterday there's a great video on Twitter of us when we're doing the lap of honour. There was one Kilkenny supporter up on Hill 16 waving a flag, and we all saw him, and it was this great moment that the Dublin and Kerry fans were ready to crowd out Hill 16, and here was a lone Kilkenny supporter head to toe in Kilkenny gear with a flag. So we're well aware of like that we're in a very small group in Kilkenny, but we're going to enjoy our moment nonetheless.
And you were telling us just before we recorded, a few chancers on your panel went over and managed to get Kerry jerseys after the game.
But yeah, there was. Jeez, they were thinking sharp now at the time, because obviously we were in the Cusick stand, and after the game, lads were swapping jerseys and whatever and holding on to them or whatever their plans were. But we came around, got a bit of food under the Hogan stand, and there was lads holding their Kilkenny jerseys. And I was saying, lads, what are you doing? They said, look, I don't know if there's a chance here that I'm going to pass by a Dublin footballer or a Kerry footballer or whoever, but the chance that I might get a jersey, I can't pass it up. So we got down the tunnel after the game. Now we were held back maybe 10 minutes, obviously enough to let the players clear off the pitch and so on, and we were making our way to the bus. And as we went down the tunnel, I think lads just made a quick little dart down the tunnel, down to right or left, to find the kit man, find the player, find the sub. And sure, we got on the bus anyway, and there was players holding up Paddy Clifford's jersey, Stephen O'Brien's jersey, whoever, and they were like, it was like they were holding a pot of gold. They thought this was absolutely unbelievable. So to have a Kerry jersey there, I didn't see any Dublin jersey, but to have a Kerry jersey there on the bus, that was after playing in one of the greatest games there ever was. Like, lads were absolutely beaming. So we have good footballers and we have chancers as well in the team, so it's a good mix.
You sure do. James, I promise that's as much Gaelic football chat as we're going to have on the pod this year, because we were talking about the Gaelic football during the week. And what did you say, Skehill? We're actually putting a quota on the amount of Gaelic football posts that can go into WhatsApp.
Yeah, I just on record as well, really. So I just struggle to get my 1-year-old to sleep sometimes. So I'm just going to replay this for her this evening. Okay, I might put her off. Well, congrats to you, Murph.
Thanks very much, James.
Not easy winning a title in 2 codes.
Yeah, thanks very much. No, it was great crack. Appreciate your support, even though I know you don't like it in the WhatsApp.
No, I was thinking, while Murphy was plucking balls out of the sky in Crow Park, I was in the bog. Bringing home turf. That's what I was doing. Yeah, you're living the high life, my friend.
Right, well, Skehill, if Kilkenny are going for the double, which Paul kind of held back in saying, but I could kind of feel it in the back of his voice, he wanted to say that the double is potentially on this coming weekend. We had Bo Lawler in contact on Instagram with one of the first questions before we dig into detail on the game itself. All-Ireland final week, what's the week like for them as players? Are you avoiding people? What's the week like? Skehill, what were you like on All-Ireland final weeks then?
I think my first and last All-Irelands were contrasting times, you could say. The first one was quite exciting. You know, it was new territory to us. At that time, let's say, I wouldn't have been in Ireland on a regular basis. Like, we'd only been we were averaging kind of 2 final appearances per decade. So the whole place was kind of in an air of hysteria. So that was one thing to get over. But at that time, let's say, I would admit probably the first one, you were kind of liaising with people, talking to people. Everyone was excited. They were talking about the match. It was all consuming, whether it be your family, friends, parishioners, whatever it was, I'd say. And I won't say it distracted you, but just you weren't as conscious or aware of all the people around the area you wanted to get access to you as you were in the future years. And then on the last one, it was kind of where just pure block it out, forget about it, because you learned that it was completely irrelevant, that, you know, when you're on the pitch, you're by yourself with your teammates. So what people say beyond the group or about the group or coming up to a game is completely irrelevant. But it was a great time. Like, I always look forward to it. You'd be kind of your nervousness level will be building as the week progresses. So like it hit the Monday and the week is coming, then towards you get Friday, little stomach starts twisting a small bit. You know, that's the way I'd be. And then you'd be just waiting for the match to start. Like the week I found would be the slowest week of all year, because you're just itching for the game to come. But like that, when you're nervous, everything seems to slow down. You know what I mean? So when the game came along, then it was just a great occasion. I loved everything about Ireland final day. Whether it be just meeting the lads in the morning, whether it be, you know, the guard escort was great, you know, the stadium was great, running out the pitch was excellent, the president was grand. So all that is involved with an Ireland final appearance is moments that should be cherished, and I still cherish them regardless if we won or lost, you know. So it's good for the guys. Like obviously Limerick are well and truly used to it, and a good portion of the Kilkenny boys are too. But I was just looking at their starters. There's a number of guys that haven't featured in one yet, so this is new territory for them. So it's grounded fresh. So something to look forward to.
Yeah, Brian Cody was saying that during the week as well, James. He was chatting to Oisín Langan. He was saying there's 3 or 4 lads there who haven't had this experience before because they weren't around in the Kilkenny panel in 2019. But he was saying sometimes that brings a good kind of energy too, because you've got guys who are fresh and guys who are excited about it. I mean, when you think back to about 10 years ago when you would have been involved in your first All-Ireland final, like I presume whatever nervous energy you have, there's probably quite a bit of positive energy going into an All-Ireland final week too when it is new. Yeah,
certainly is, because, you know, you've never been in a final to be defeated, you know, and there's no negative baggage or anything like that coming with you. I suppose in our first situation, you're probably referencing 2012. Yeah, that was the first one. Look, facing the Kilkenny team, who we were going to face it was the second time. The first day, do you know what I mean? The second time we were going to face them that year, like, and they were very, very strong at the time, to say so. But instead of approaching it with an element of nervousness, which we did on our own performance, like, we were really looking forward to challenge them. You know, that's what we were. We were the challengers essentially. You know, they had the title. We were trying to take it off them. And I'm looking here to say this. I'm saying from the 2019 Ireland final, Kilkenny have 7 starters that will be starting. You'd assume will be starting on Sunday, whereas Limerick have 15 starters that have played in, as you said yourself, you know, 4 of the last five finals. So they're bringing a different dimension to it in terms of experience. But again, there's guys coming into the Kilkenny squad now that haven't been in a final. They don't know really what. Obviously they know what it's about, etc. They'll feed off the experienced guys in the panel, but they'll come into this like completely afresh, and there's no baggage, if you know what I mean. I know I repeat that word, and they're liable to do anything. I just think of Walter Walsh, you know, his performance in his first Ireland in 12 in the replay. Like, he was an unknown entity entirely. We didn't know about him at all, and he comes on. I think he scores 2-3 man the match. So that's a newcomer. So I know everyone will point to experience, and experience is important in big moments. Don't get me wrong, but you can't beat youthfulness, exuberance, you know, and just a guy willing to go out and give it his best shot on his first attempt.
Yeah, Paul, that kind of reminds me, Walter Welsh being one, Shane O'Donnell probably being the other, where he gets the news on the team buses coming around the corner to Croke Park. Actually, you're coming in to start in this All-Ireland final replay, and 2 guys that just hurled with abandon and banged in goals for their team to win. What's Paul Murphy like on the week of an All-Ireland final then, given that you've just done a week of an All-Ireland final?
Yeah, James hit the nail on the head there, really, in terms of the preparation. Like the first one, for any of the lads experiencing the first one, like I was in bed and asleep by 9:30 or 10 o'clock the night of the first one, because I was just so looking forward to it. And like, I don't think you feel in your first one, you feel a huge amount of pressure, because like I was always thinking that, okay, this is my first All-Ireland, I'm not one of the big names here, everyone's looking at Henry and Tommy and JJ and Eoin Kelly, whoever, they're all looking at them. So you didn't feel that there was a huge amount of pressure on you. But then you fast forward to 2012 when we were playing the boys in the final, and they were after giving us a good beating, like in the Leinster final. And it's funny, James, exactly what you said there, of, you know, the stomach twists a small bit, like randomly in the week into it. It could be the Wednesday, suddenly a belt of nerves. You could be doing nothing. You could be just sitting at home watching telly and sitting on the couch, and suddenly your stomach just twists a small bit, and you go, Jesus, what's that? Yeah. It's like the body knows something's coming down the line here, and that a lot of that is down to, you have 15 tickets to hand out, you have gear to sort, you have to go and collect this. There's lots of stuff that goes, and everything is pointed towards Sunday. But it's a random kind of an experience. It's not that you're overwhelmed by nerves, but suddenly as you're getting closer to the day, you kind of go, the stomach, you could be absolutely fine. Stomach gets a little twist, and it just reminds you have a big match on Sunday, something like this. And only an All-Ireland final does that. But generally, I was always great, really enjoyed it. Like James said, I always loved it. And I loved, the happiest place I was in the run into an All-Ireland final was getting to go into Nolan Park and train the week of it, because it was like, I suppose, you were getting a bit of an appetizer for the fight, because lads, it was great atmosphere, lads were buzzing, there was always, you know, and it was always good weather, so there was just a great atmosphere about it. But each of them were kind of different. Like after 2013, let's say, when we were beaten in the quarter final, I remember after we went, myself and Richie Hogan went to the final that year, and we went out in the town for a few pints, and afterwards Richie said, right, that's it, we're going to be in it next year, we're not going to be going out watching one, you know, having a few pints. So when it rolled around the following year and we were back in it, I was kind of back to the thing again of seizing that day, of like, look, go and enjoy it and everything. So for each player it's different, but I enjoyed the run into them. I loved the running into it. There was a little bit of nerves involved, there's a little bit of making sure that your house is in order from a bit out, and there's also a little bit of having to be selfish. Like, I didn't like overly talking to people about the final coming into it. I didn't like people coming up going, is Richie Hogan injured? Is TJ injured? I heard, Conor Fogarty is flying it in training. I didn't like having to constantly talk about that because I wasn't going to tell anyone anything anyway, even if they were flying it in training, even if they were injured. I wasn't going to tell them. So constantly having conversations that you were lying to people basically was tiring at times, So, and that's no offence to anybody, but that was just part of my preparation. So I enjoyed every bit of it. And but they take a huge amount out of players. Like, it is a huge thing because the week is so frantic. They're to be enjoyed, and then the day itself, it's a long day. It's a long day in the body. It's a long day in the mind. So it is a tough, tiring experience, but it's absolutely brilliant. And all my experiences were excellent with the whole lot of them.
Do you know the guy I feel for, Paul, is when the team is named internally during the week and a different team goes out to the media to be named, and someone probably knows they've been told by the manager they're going to be replaced on game day. So it's your name to start, but you're probably not going to start. But you got to keep it quiet between then and Sunday because you can't afford anyone to find out. Yeah,
that's it. And there's a huge element of taking one for the team there, because it's obviously important. If that is happening, it's obviously important that that is kept under wraps until the day, because maybe it's part of a plan that will give them something they're not expecting. And usually it's a forward or something. Usually it's not like centre back or something, but usually it's a corner forward or a wing forward. And the likes of Walter Welsh, I don't think that was I think he was named on the Friday night that he would start, but obviously that was something for Galway, like going, God, there's a lad, they're starting a fella here 6'5", 19 years of age or whatever Walter was. So that in itself was a bit of a whiz bang. But it's interesting when you think, like, obviously when we're going back to it there of talking about people playing their first ones or people being told at short notice. If you look at 2012, 13 and 14, the man of the match, they were both 3 drawn games obviously, but the games that are actually won, the 3 lads who won man of the match didn't play the first day. So obviously Shane O'Donnell wasn't there the first day. Walter Welsh wasn't there the first day. Shane O'Donnell wasn't there the first day in 2013, and then Kieran Joyce won it in 2014, and he wasn't playing the first day. So it's interesting the effect of maybe last minute notice on a few newer players, that it could, you're just sprung, you don't have time to think about it, so you just play the match like it's a new match, like it's any match you're playing, a challenge match or anything. You don't have time to get overwhelmed by it. So the whole run into it, there's so many things that can happen. It's probably what makes All-Ireland Day special. And again, you go back to like Shane O'Donnell, a man basically exploded out of nowhere, 3 goals in All-Ireland final, and is forevermore a hero in Clare regardless what he does. So it is interesting, like you're saying, that someone could be sprung there now on Friday night who might be a little bit unexpected and could become the hero on Sunday. And like you said, another player will probably have to keep that under wraps Friday evening, tell his family that he is starting even though he isn't. But I don't know if that is going to be the case for either team this week.
Yeah, I think if it's going to happen, it's far more likely to be on the Kilkenny side than the Limerick side. With Limerick, I think, James, you know what you're going to get. And Wayne Donnellan's been in contact. The question that we probably got in the most over the last 24 hours is Cian Lynch going to start? And that's probably going to be the talk in Limerick and in Kilkenny over the next few days. We got to see a bit of Cian Lynch, a cameo performance on the bench in the semi-final. The question now is, does John Kiley put him straight into the team, James, for this weekend?
I can't see how he wouldn't, to be honest. But the question is, where do you put him? And if I'm John Kiley, I've dropped out of Donovan and put in Lynch to midfield. Look, it's harsh, but you can't leave a lad of his quality on the bench. But I haven't started Peter Casey. I'm talking like as if I'm the manager here. I haven't started him. No, he's not starting. I've left in Graham Mulcahy going forward. I've put Cian Lynch into midfield, and I've left the rest as is. He's just too good. That's it in the story. He's too good. If the likes of Kenning, if TJ Reid, if Tony Kelly, these guys were injured for a prolonged spell and were available for final, would the respective managers play them? 100%. And the same applies here. I think what happens with Limerick sometimes is we look at the rest of their forward unit and we look at the brilliance of Gillan and Flanagan, Hegarty and Hayes, and we say nearly somewhat, geez, they won't need Lynch to start. Of course they do. They need to give absolutely everything to the first half against Kilkenny, because that's what they're going to be receiving. Like Kilkenny, notably, they start strong all the time. Always start strong, start heavy, work fierce hard. So you're going to have to match them and exceed them for the first 20 minutes. And you need ball players like Cian Lynch. And when you put in a Cian Lynch person, you take there's an interesting dilemma now, or an interesting angle of this, the Mikey Butler. I know it's a question, who is he going to take up? And there's 4 lads he could take up, to be honest. So I can't wait to see who he's going to follow. I can't see him going out to Cian Lynch if he starts in midfield. I just don't. I can see him picking up a Gillan type person who needs a lot of close marshalling. But that's an interesting dynamic itself. But look, answer your question, Will, Cian Lynch starts all day for me.
Right, we can get back to the debate around who Mikey Butler is going to pick up and where Gillane is potentially going to drift in a moment. But Paul, when it comes to the question around Cian Lynch, you felt last week if someone's going to miss out, Mulcahy might be the one to drop as opposed to a midfielder dropping to the bench.
Yeah, I think so. Like I think Cian Lynch does start, and I think unfortunately, and look, it's just going off. You know, Graham Mulcahy kind of in the latter end of the championship has now we're starting to see him on the starting list. But you know, he has been in and out, and there's been a few players, you know, for Limerick that has been their job for the last while. Maybe they start and, you know, come off after about 40 minutes, or maybe they're just introduced, you know, as a sub with 20 minutes to go. And if no, the indications maybe would be that Graham Mulcahy will be that player, and I suppose it's tough to say it because he's a great player. He's been a great servant for Limerick, but you know, these days are there to be won. I think Cian Lynch will start, and I think there's two reasons why he would. Look, let's say if he's 95%, we'll call it that he's 95%. Those players, you're better off nearly starting them if you have any plan to play him at all, because if they come on, get injured, and you have to take them off, that's 2 substitutions gone. Cian Lynch the last day, I think he got on maybe 2-3 balls, grand, but I think John Kiley would rather get him into the game earlier and be involved and be at the pitch of the game. There's some players, like we saw David Reid, comes in with, you know, 10 or 15 minutes ago or whatever it is, like, you know, has a real impact basically coming down the home straight. I've no doubt of Cian Lynch's capabilities to potentially do that, but I think where his strengths are is starting the game and being influential throughout the game. So I think that's where he goes. So I think he does go in centre forward. I think they will start him. Kyle Hayes obviously will have to move then. And like I said last week, I think what will possibly happen is they'll just put 15 on Kyle Hayes' back maybe and say, listen, we don't want you inside there in the full forward line. What we want you to do is we want to ask a few questions of the full back line, get out around middle of the field, centre forward, wherever you want to go. But what we want you to do is get that ball and be running at the Kilkenny goal. We don't want you getting the ball with your back to the Kilkenny goal. We want you running at it. So I think that's the switch that Limerick will make, and I don't see them touching their midfield, because their midfield is a very strong midfield. They get on ball. They're influential in their own way of breaking up play. So I think the Limerick midfield stays as is. Cian Lynch centre forward and Kyle Hayes will drop into the corner.
Alright, Paul, to pick up James's point there a second ago about Gillane, in the Kilkenny defence, who's picking Gillane up?
Mikey Butler. I think Mikey Butler picks him up. 2019, Hughie Lawler picked him up because Gillane was starting full forward, if I'm right, that day. I don't think it was a case that we went man marking that day and Hughie Lawler was told to go for Aaron Gillane. Maybe he was, but my memory was that Gillane started full forward that day. Yeah, so like with Flanagan in there now, in around kind of holding the full forward position, and we see what Gillane is doing, drifting out, starting in and around the D and making that break out in open space to get onto a ball and then popping it over. What you want there is a fella that's just going to stick to you and stick to that player and just flick and flick and flick and just annoy them, just absolutely annoy. And you need someone to have the legs to do that, you know, the legs to last second make a burst over, you know, 30-40 yards to stick, you know, go toe to toe with Gillane, to do that if Gillane gets a ball, you know, a tigerish kind of defender, and all those things are just pointing that Mikey Butler will do that. And I don't think it's a case that this week, you know, Brian will have to protect Mikey Butler from it now, because obviously he got a lot of attention after the Tony Kelly thing. I don't think he's that type of player. I think Brian will just go, you're marking Aaron Gillane and that's it, and on you go. And I think Kilkenny might do that just for Gillane and anyone else after that. Potentially Cian Lynch maybe, I don't know, but I don't think Kilkenny will overuse that card. I don't think they'll say, right, we're going to go with all matchups. But Mikey Butler for me would be the man for Gillane.
That could be a hell of a battle, Skehill. You've got the slipperiest customer around in Aaron Gillane and Mikey Butler, who's shown in the last day what he can do when he sticks to an opponent. That could be one of the real key battles if they end up going toe to toe. Yeah,
but see, it's horses for courses too. So if we were to put Mikey Butler into the situation of the semi-final against Limerick, you'd say he'd be well able to marshal Gillane there, like say, where the ball is into open space, and Limerick do it very well. It's Quaid to Nash or Quaid to Finn to Donovan or Donoghue, and then into the corner, you know, where Gillane is moving. His movement is absolutely excellent. So if that's the kind of style of play that Limerick are going to adopt, which you'd imagine they will for a large portion of the game, you need someone like Mikey Butler to be absolutely glue tight to Gillane and to be there on arrival. Like, I think if Gillane is such a good shooter and his range of shooting body motion is so good that he can shoot nearly over his shoulder somewhat and still score. So if you're going to have any chance against him, you need to be there when the ball's arriving. A bit like Dahi got a couple of times. He was hitting the hurl as it was bouncing into Gillane. That's your only shot. If you give him a chance to get out in front of it, you're in serious trouble. But the thing with Gillane, and I'd say Lawler will take up Flanagan, I'd imagine. Flanagan will probably roam around the place and I think Flanagan will find himself in those pockets of space this week, because I'd say if Gillane is on Butler, then Limerick are going to pump in a few high balls into him, and we know how good Gillane is in the air. I'd just be interested to see how that's adopted, because Gillane, we've seen him throughout the years. He does this kind of in behind move whereby he gets obviously in behind a hurler and kind of catches the ball out over him and then turns, and it's a free range of goal. So I think in this instance, if they do put Butler on him, you could see that happen a lot more. You know, and I think if you're looking at a player who might have the pace of Butler, then Gillane goes out into space and vice versa. You know, so I think it's kind of horses for courses. So, but then again, sure, like I haven't really seen Mikey Butler in the air being tested in a one-on-one situation in the full back line. So again, I'm interested to see that. But like history will show that Kilkenny lads are well able to win their own ball. So his job, Mikey Butler, is just get to ground and the cavalry will arrive. But just don't let the Gillane get primary possession, whether it's on the ground, coming in low ball, or coming in high. Just don't let him get into his hand, because he's too dangerous.
Paul, when it comes to how Kilkenny are likely to set up for this, given how well they've played in the semi-final, do we think they're going to play same personnel, probably very similar system again?
I don't think they'll. It's a tough one to call. Like the system wasn't overly tested. Their system wasn't overly tested against Clare in terms of exposed because Clare didn't go at them hard enough for Limerick to look at it and go, okay, well, this is Kilkenny's system, and okay, can see a few things we might poke holes in here. I think if Clare did test it, Kilkenny maybe would change it up a little bit more, because they don't want Limerick poking holes in what Kilkenny are going to do. But they could go very similar again, yeah, because first of all, it was so effective the last day. And like I said, there wasn't so much pushback from Clare that there was weaknesses showing up. So if that team was good enough to beat, or the system and personnel was good enough to beat Clare the last day without being overly tested, well, it's nearly like a fresh hand again to go against Limerick. I do expect what Brian will do regardless will be, he'll maybe place one or two lads, like as in if we saw Adrian Mullen starting at midfield and then drifting to right half forward, he might start at right half forward and then come out to midfield and maybe ask questions that way. I do expect Brian to move players around, so very similar personnel, maybe one or two changes, I don't know, but you know, he maybe will move the likes of Adrian Mullen and Eoin, Cody and TJ and these just to ask a few questions of Limerick, and maybe to try and identify, have Limerick actually targeted anyone? Have Limerick said, listen, you are going with, which I don't think Limerick will do, but I think it's just as well that the Kilkenny management will move players around to see, is there any indications here that they've identified any of our players as, okay, you have to go with him, you are going to man-mark that person, because if that does happen, well then Kilkenny can look at that and go, okay, there's something here, they're obviously quite concerned about Eoin Cody here being close to goal, or they're concerned about Mossy Keogh, or you know, these sort of matchups. So I think that's the only way. Kilkenny maybe will play the same personnel, but maybe move them around a small bit, start them in different positions, and just see how Limerick react to that start. But other than that, I don't see a lot of wholesale changes to this Kilkenny team.
Can I ask you a question, Murph?
Yeah.
When you think about these moves that are made, is that Cody? Is he the tactician, or is there someone in the background?
Like Cody would have his own ideas in terms of, like, from my understanding of it, and this is from never having sat in with their conversations, obviously, like, so your ideas as much as mine, but I think Brian obviously has his own ideas, and it's kind of a case of argue against why this shouldn't happen, and then, you know, lads make an argument, and I think if an argument is valid, then okay, I see where that's coming from. I think the lads do have their speak, and I think they go, you know, they see patterns in training, and like, this is the thing with Kilkenny training, from my own experience, and look, again, you're free to speak about Galway's experience, and maybe it's the exact same, but you know, there'll be indications in training that certain person's going well in certain position, and they'll identify that after training each night to say, look, is everyone seeing the same thing here? Are we all on the same page? This is good, this is happening, so on. So it's not a surprise when you come to a team or a management meeting out from an All-Ireland. I think Brian goes in with very strong opinions, obviously enough, into those meetings, and it's kind of a case of argue against why this shouldn't happen. That would be my impression of it. In terms of tactician, I think he trusts the lads around him as well. I think the lads do come with tactics, but Brian would have his own, obviously, ideas of how to shake up a team and what should happen, and not only the tactics, but what each person brings to that position in terms of maybe a physicality, maybe a bit of aggression. Like Eddie Brennan played the All-Ireland final in 2011 when he hadn't started any other games. But I think what Brian said Eddie would bring to that, Eddie was obviously flying it in training, but Eddie would bring a fire to that kind of forward line. And like Eddie was going around hitting Paddy Marduns, hitting Mickey Cahill, like real kind of old dog for the hard road sort of stuff, like as in a lad to be walking out and it'd be just a free out and Eddie just go and hit him his shoulder and walk away and your man to be sitting on his arse or something. I remember he did it to Mickey Call at one stage. Clever stuff like that, and Brian would be even thinking of that. Like he'd be thinking, I could throw someone in here now that will, there'll be maybe a bit of devilment in him. There might be something that'll throw a player off. If he sees a young player, Brian might go for blood there. Again, I think of Eddie Brennan 2007 against Limerick. Seamus Hickey was in the corner. Get Eddie Brennan in there, and Eddie Brennan will love seeing a young fella stand in the corner. So I think Brian will also bring that to meetings, not just tactics, but what about personality matchups? What about these two together? That's something he thinks of as well.
James, I'm very interested to see how it's going to work out. The scoring power that we saw from the half-forward line from Kilkenny, and you can almost include where Adrian Mullen was popping up in positions around the half-forward line, kind of in a more attacking midfield role, up against this Limerick half-back line, which is so settled, who are also so important with how Limerick actually distribute the ball out as well. That zone in the field is going to be intriguing on Sunday.
Yeah, like witnessing firsthand how Limerick backs operate, I've said it 1,000 times, they're a fantastic unit, but they seem to have this great ability to remain in their own positions. Like it's rare you see a Jimmy Burns ending up on the 7 wing or a Declan Hannon ending up on the at midfield or in the 4 corner, etc. So they're excellent at staying in their set positions. Their full back line are right move. I watched Nash and Casey and Finn. They go amongst the line, the three of them. It doesn't really seem to matter because they're all good hurlers, good defenders, and they can play the ball out well. But the half back line really seem to move. That's why I asked Murph about the tactics. I'm wondering if I'm Cody, I'm left, and what do I do with my half forward line? How do I get him on as much ball as possible to drag out the Limerick half back line to create space for inside? And at the minute, like no team has really nailed it as such. I just think that they have the inside forwards of Kilkenny have a seriously tough job because they have to work like dogs, to be honest, to shut down the half back line first of all, and also when Kilkenny have the ball to get themselves into space and to occupy the half back line and get the Limerick half back line going back to their own goal. That's the direction you want them. You don't want Declan Hannon or Kyle Hayes or Jimmy Burns coming forward looking for shots. You want them to go back to their own goal and try to defend and pin them back and make the pitch as small for those guys as possible, because that's their platform. And in fairness, like what they do, so much of what they do comes from their backs. And even I know everyone gets the plaudits, Land and Flanagan, and rightfully so, because they do some great shooting. But like the heartbeat of the team and where it all comes from their backs out the way, and they make the jobs of the forwards a bit easier, in my opinion. And crucial to that is the likes of Declan Hannon. You need to be occupying Declan Hannon to defend. You want him defending all day defending. You don't want him to have his hands on the ball at all. So I just want to know how that's going to happen, because the reason I asked you the question mark was because I do watch Cody, and I think to use TJ nearly as a pawn to place him into the corner forward to see who they're going to put on him, then bring him out and see does he stick with him and move the opposition defence around a bit. That's what I saw against Clare. They put him in the corner. Paul Flanagan hops onto him. Right, let's bring Paul Flanagan out to midfield. Bring him into a zone where he'd think he wouldn't be used to. On an inter-county setup. So I'm wondering, how does he operate TJ Reid? Then I'm thinking, does he put Adrian Mullen out of the blue? Does he put him somewhere in around there? Just try and upset things a small bit. Because that's what I've been trying to do. I've been trying to get the Limerick defenders kind of out of their comfort zone a bit, which is very, very difficult because they're seasoned campaigners. And like a big word I used before is experience. So they seem to have the answer for any team for this year. So they haven't been beaten essentially. They might mind the league for a moment, but they haven't been beaten in championship. And they have a massive run in terms of unbeaten in championship games. So they seem to always find the answer for whatever an opposition team throws at them. And like in fairness, from a Galway perspective, Galway moved very well. They moved forwards around. They got into different positions, tried long range shooting, tried to get ball in the corners. And Limerick just seemed to wear it down and then rode out the last 5 or 7 minutes. So it was very impressive. That's where I came away from the semi-final looking at them going, geez, they absorbed all the pressure that Galway gave them, whether it was something that they expected or they didn't expect, and they adapted fierce well. Which I suppose Kilkenny didn't have to do that against Clare, to be honest. So that's why it's very intriguing for me as kind of, if you want to call it an analyst, looking in and saying, how does Cody attack Limerick? Because Limerick will come, you'd imagine, with the same platform all the time, the same team, the same personnel, obviously the Lynch dynamic, etc., and the same pattern of play. But Cody, I think, is going to have to throw something a little different, because I think what they did against Clare, they need 90% of that again to repeat, but they just need something a little different. What's that? I don't know. It's hard for me to say what it is, but something different maybe we haven't seen before, whether it's, I just know, introducing Walter Walsh, putting him in on top of, a Jimmy Burns or Declan Hannon and pumping the ball down the middle. I just don't know, but I just think something needs to be newly thrown at them.
Paul, that's a tactic they could look at potentially. I mean, the one time that I think Limerick's half-back line have been unsettled this year we have to go way back to the Tipperary game very early in the Munster Championship, where Tipperary were able to create some overloads. They used the puck out very effectively to get in on that half back line. Then Limerick sorted it out during the game. You know, Skehill talks about finding solutions. During the game, they were able to fix it. But for times, Tipperary got a little bit of joy, particularly, you know, pushing overloads onto both wings that day.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. And Kilkenny will look and say, what kind of questions, let's say, have previously been asked of Limerick that have, you know, that teams have done that have worked, and also what could we now newly, let's say, bring to the table that maybe Limerick haven't seen before. And I'd agree with you, James, like, is in what way Brian Cody is thinking. I think the likes of, so like TJ obviously being, every team has this kind of outstanding player that you can use them like a pawn to go, right, let's see who they want to actually mark him. And let's say, for example, it's Sean Finn to go in. And I don't think Limerick are such a strong team. I don't think they overly hang their coat on doing something like this. But let's say TJ goes in and Sean Finn marks him. If TJ drifts out, like, Sean Finn won't follow, he might follow him for a minute or so until they can reset, like. But I don't think Limerick are too concerned with the likes of that. But I think what they might do would be, you know, the likes of Adrian Mullen starting on the wing. I think they'll target the likes of Adrian Mullen because he scored 5 points from play the last time and is really influential. So I think they'll be saying, listen, let's keep an eye on Adrian Mullen and of course TJ. But they might start Adrian at centre forward and kind of go, wait now, he's starting on Declan Hannon. Like, obviously we don't have Declan Hannon penned down to go and man mark someone. We'd like Declan Hannon to be orchestrating everything here. So now Adrian Mullen is maybe stepping out to midfield and Declan Hannon's going, okay, do I have to follow him now or do I not follow? Those are the questions they're going to want to ask. And then likewise, like I said, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see Walter Welch down on the programme to start at wing forward, but he's actually in at full forward. And then suddenly Mike Casey is standing on the edge of the box going, and we saw, you know, one long ball into the Galway full forward line goal the last day. So maybe they're saying, okay, if we make the Limerick full back line sit very deep, sit right down onto their 14, well, that will create a bit of space for our half forward line. And let's say the Galway match as well, Galway got a bit of return from that middle of the field area, literally between the 265s. And they talk about this middle third, like even tighter again than that, the midfield area, 265s. How many points did they bang over in the first half from that area? So I think what Kilkenny will do is try and, you know, get a lot of ball through that area, because the Limerick defence, the half back line, will want to sit back that little bit more. So Kilkenny have to ask the question of them to basically say, listen, you may step up on us or we're going to start putting balls over the bar. And if Limerick do that, well, now suddenly there's 40, 50 yards of space into that full forward line that's now sitting deep on the 14. So, like, that's the arm wrestle. And for me, overall, Limerick will have the system. But what Kilkenny have proven is that they're the team this year to poke holes in systems. So I think Kilkenny will look and go, okay, like, obviously we have a game plan. We're not, you know, going out here real negative, trying to, I suppose, you know, not impose our game plan on Limerick. But we're certainly going to try and stop Limerick from playing the way that they want to play. And I think one really important thing that if Kilkenny want to win this, what they have to do is, let's say a ball lands down in the Kilkenny right half back position on Mikey Carey and he's with Gearóid Hegarty. You know, Mikey Carey will be fighting there, but you'll see the likes of the wing forward, be it Adrian Mullen or whoever, fleeting back down off that wing to support Mikey Carey there. And if Gearóid Hegarty wins it, well, suddenly there's a man on his back that he's not seeing coming, and Adrian Mullen being trying to break it. But there's a chain reaction there that has to happen, in that, you know, Adrian Mullen is now up there. You potentially have Dan Morrissey free. There's a knock-on effect. There's a domino effect around the pitch. The players now have to be looking, going, okay, who's the next man to go to? And that goes as far as literally the left half forward for Kilkenny looking across the wing, going, okay, the ball is out in the other wing at the moment, but is Dermot Burns gone fleeting up the side here now, that they're going to spray the ball across into him? I have to be now tracking that man. Like, this is how far ahead the Kilkenny players have to be thinking on their feet on Sunday. And for any game to work, and there's a huge attrition rate trying to do that, but the bottom line is that's what Kilkenny have to do in terms of work rate and a tactic to actually turn over this Limerick team. It's an enormous task, but I think Kilkenny are well aware of what they have to do.
James, what we expect out of Limerick, Mert Costello was in contact. Can Limerick actually bring a full 70-minute display? Haven't done so far this year. I guess by the 70-minute display here, we're talking about something akin to the last two All-Ireland finals, the All-Ireland semi-final from last year, where, you know, they've blown Waterford and Cork away on the big occasions in All-Ireland finals and, you know, put in a whirlwind performance. Haven't quite seen that from Limerick so far this year. It's been a case of getting the job done. In the Munster final, they hurled at a high level but needed extra time to get past Clare. Do you reckon there's a big Limerick performance, something akin to what we saw maybe over the last 2 years in All-Ireland finals coming up?
That's a tricky kind of question to answer, because like those two performances you referenced it's like total hurling. You know, you see it in the Barcelona, the Ajax days, total football. That's what it was. It was total hurling. Like, if you're looking at to mix an exhibition style game with the workmanlike performance. That's it. You know, that was full 70 minutes. Like, will that be produced? I don't think they'll be let produce it. Like, what's a full 70 minutes? Is when they lead from the first second to the end? Is that a full 70 minutes of hurling? I just think it's going to be a really good contest. I think Kilkenny are going to really put up to them. And that's not to be disingenuous to Kilkenny, but like it's the fact that I just don't think Limerick are going to have what some people might class as an easy ride, or they might get 70 minutes of an easy ride and being in the lead from minute one and finish off the game as champions. I think this game is going to ebb and flow and be, you know, back and forth and nearly like a heavyweight bout where there'll be plenty of punches thrown, and just who's going to last until the last, you know, 65 minutes onwards. That's the key. That's one of the key, definitely the key areas. Like, and at the end of the day, Kilkenny look at this game. They only have to lead once. You know, they just have to lead once, and that's when the final whistle is blown. You don't have to be leading the first 10 minutes, whatever. Great if you were, but you just have to lead once. So if you were to just keep dogging Limerick and dogging them so much that you lead once, then great. This total performance, Limerick, they're liable to do it. Like, they're an exceptional team, and even when you go through, I'm laughing at ratings of players like I do for every final, let's say, they're, you know, on an individual basis they're exceptional, and then when you collate them all together, you know, the rating becomes crazy, because again, for a number of reasons. One, they've done it, they've proven it, so it's not as if we're making this up, you know, and we're saying this might happen. They've done it, we've seen it happen, and they're able to do it to anyone. And like, number two is that they have backup. So like, when you have the first 15 guys that we're toying with Cian Lynch possibly not starting, you know, let's say he doesn't start for the crack, let's say he doesn't start, Cian Lynch doesn't start, you bring in him, you bring in, as you said, Peter Casey, you bring in Conor O'Neill, so they've got cavalry, so they've got guys that can sustain from the first second to potentially 85 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So they've got an embarrassment of riches, if you ask me. Are they going to produce a 70-minute performance? Certainly they will not do to Kilkenny what they did to Cork last year. Not a hope. I'll tell you that 100% not going to happen. The year before against Waterford, they got far too much space. That won't happen either. I think it's going to be a very, very tight contest. And again, I'm going to call it right now, Murph. I'm going to say Limerick by 3. You know, that's just putting full respect on Limerick's name for what they've achieved and what they've done, and the clientele they have. Simple as that.
Right, off camera, I can definitely hear Skehill's infamous notebook, which is open at the moment. So I think we're going to get these player ratings in a moment. But Paul, tell us, what are you expecting from the Limerick performance then? This idea of a 70-minute total display again from them, and then we'll get Skehill's player rankings after that.
Yeah, well, look, we haven't seen a full 70-minute. The closest thing, I suppose, the Munster final. See, it's exactly like James said. What classifies a 70-minute? Probably last All-Ireland final that classified it, but it was a total hurling where they totally challenged, you know, significantly that day, enough to warrant, you know, would they have hurled 50 or 60 minutes that day? But I don't know. Certainly the semi-final wasn't 70 minutes of hurling. I'd agree. I don't think Kilkenny will let them have it their own way in the All-Ireland final. The one thing, the terms and conditions that apply with this Limerick team is they are the generational team at the moment, in that they're just an exceptional group of players, and you know, no more than when they were down by 10 points against Tipperary and suddenly they just turn it around. You know, they're capable of incredible things. But I do believe, and again, you know, I'll give my verdict in a while, but you know, this Kilkenny team has been progressing, you know, really well this year. They've been written off a good few times now, but they've also been given, you know, their credit when it's been deserved. But I just feel that, you know, the performance in the semi-final was just an indication as to where they're going, and the fact that they're going to be looking at Limerick now going, we know exactly what's in front of us here. We're not nervous. We're going to relish what's in front of us. And this is an enormous opportunity for us as a group of Kilkenny players to do what a lot of people said wasn't possible for this team and go out and win an All-Ireland. And I know a lot of people will turn and say, they'll probably put a lot of credit on Brian. You know, I believe this team will win an All-Ireland. But a lot of credit will be put on Brian, saying isn't an incredible achievement out of Brian that you know winning All Ireland with this team. But a lot of players will be looking at that's down to the players to actually go out and win this All Ireland. And I think the players that are there are going, this is an absolutely incredible opportunity for us as a group to go up and quiet a lot of naysayers here and go win an All Ireland and do what some people have said weren't possible, which I think is a bit ridiculous for this team. So, you know, personally myself, I think Kilkenny are going to win it, and I think they're going to win it because we haven't seen that 70-minute performance from Limerick yet. So the door is open there for Kilkenny, and like I said, Kilkenny have proven to be the team that can poke holes in your game plan, and I think they'll relish the idea of, you know, All-Ireland final day, this Limerick team, what an occasion to go and prove the type of team you are, then to go and beat the current All-Ireland champions and one of the best teams of any generation.
Yeah, it's no bad thing to be calling a team a good spoiler. We saw it this year with what Kilkenny Rebels do in the Leinster final, what they did to Clare the last day too. There's plenty of evidence, even a team who've lost 2 games this year, still when it comes to the big occasion, this team can definitely get right in your face and stop you from doing your normal game plan, which can be half the battle. So that means we come to Skehill's player ratings ahead of the All-Ireland final. Because you mentioned this at the roadshow. You were saying you used to love looking at, when the teams were laid out before the games. You've done your own player rankings here, James.
Yeah, I just love looking at it and saying, what's the mind space of the person doing it, you know what I mean? Because like his or her opinion could vary so much from mine.
I'd just like to, sorry James, jump across you there. I love when you text us in the WhatsApp group and say, geez lads, I'm flat out. You always seem to be flat out. And then you come with a job that no one asked you to do. I have player ratings for every person on the team. Do you know what I mean? Right before the show, lads, I've done player ratings for everything. So like, at some stage I'm going to call you out in this whole, geez lads, I'm flat out. I don't know.
Might I the right reply, right? You're a public servant, right? Which means there's only 8 hours in your day.
24.
There's 24 hours in my day, right? Okay.
Right, go on.
Oh, I'm happy with that response now, I have to say. I tell you, okay, will I start with the cumulative first or will I go individually?
You do, James. We're just going to mute here and you do you.
You set the parameters. I'm having a drink. One.
And Paul Murphy, 9 each. Is that fair? Yeah. Sean Finn, 9. Mikey Butler, 9 on his performance so far. Mikey Casey, 8. Hugh Lawler, 9. Barry Nash, 9. Tommy Walsh, 7. Jimmy Burns, 9. Mikey Carey, 7. Declan Hannon and Richie Reid, 8. Dan Morrissey, 7. Paddy Deegan, 8. Will O'Donoghue, 8. Adrian Mullen, 9. I put in Cian Lynch midfield, 9. Yeah. Conor Brown, 7. Garrett Hegarty on current, 8. Owen Cody, 8. Kyle Hayes, 9. Pádraig Walsh, 7. Tom Morrissey, 8. TJ Reid, 9. Aaron Gillen, 9. Billy Ryan, 7. Seamus Flanagan, 8. Martin Hogan, 7. And Graham McCahey and Cian Kenny, 7 each. It gives a cumulative 125 versus 118.
In favour of Limerick?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm
not being too harsh now, because I've been accused of being overly harsh and just shooting that from the hip. So I think I've put a bit of thought into that one.
Anyone that stands out, Murph, that you don't like the particular ratings for there?
Yeah, like tough one there, I suppose. Tom, if you were putting the likes of Cian Kenny down as a 7, scoring 1-2 in the last game, being influential, but Tom Morrissey's an 8 after being taken off in the last game. Yeah, like there's a few there that could be argued there as well. I'm trying to think who else. You called him out there fairly quick, so I couldn't actually think
I made sure I called them out very fast.
Yeah. No, look, in fairness, as in, I think as I was saying to you, you were saying the breakdown first. I think if any player comes off a pitch and they open up any of the papers the following morning and a 7 is beside their name, I think that's, there's great credit to a player. So I don't think any player could be disheartened by any of those ratings. If you lashed out a few 4s or 5s there now, I would have been up in arms and I would have cut you off. But I'll let you have your speak on that.
I was accused yesterday of being anti-Clare, so anymore when I do a Clare ratings, I'm going to lash out 4 or 5s.
I presume this anti-Clare sentiment came from your game against Ballyea, did it?
Correct, yeah, right. Great. It did indeed. And probably the fact that I flipping forgot to put Tony Kelly in my top 5, yeah. Let's just say he's as good in person as he is in the television, that's put it that way, yeah.
But I'm glad Tony Kelly didn't come over and take any exception to what you've been saying about him this year then.
No, not at all. Jesus, he wouldn't deal with a small folk like me. Simple as that, yeah, no way.
And no bogman like you.
No bogman like me just wants to go play the game and go home, you know yourself.
Let the club.
But the umpire in the second half, I walked down, I'd say he was 20 years of age. Hi Skehill, why are you so anti-Clare? Like, what? Jeez, I am not led.
Yeah, you're saying to us the whole time off air, yeah.
Well, you're anti-Cork.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. You were saying to us the whole time off air, you are.
You may ask Diarmuid O'Sullivan about that. I'm very balanced.
Yeah. Who was he aiming them digs at?
Skehill, did you feel very, very put out, given that he pretty much name-checked all of the off-the-ball pundits, particularly as being fair, and I did not hear James Skehill in the Rock speech whatsoever?
Oh, if you know me, Will, at all, I have a terrible, terrible thick skin. But I think I'm probably the maker of my own downfall there. I would probably put a bet on that I said something to him that I shouldn't have said in a game. Do you know what I mean? That probably... probably didn't go down too well, or probably said something about Cork or something. That's just liable. That's what I'm liable to do these days.
If you say something during the game from your own goal and the opposition fullback hears it, you've fairly shouted.
Well, he may have got sent off right in a game, and I may, in my young and youthfulness and stupidity.
Right. What game was this? Let's sit in on this, because you can remember the exact moment here where you've.
And I guarantee you, he forgets it. Like, you know, this is the thing, like, just like, he forgets it because
it's like the Tony Kelly effect. He doesn't put in or out with him.
I just remember Gerard Nan turning to me and just giving out to me for being this young Wayne bull that wanted to just stay in your goal like a good lad, will you? Kenning's debut, or not his debut, but do you remember the 2-12 game he got?
Incredible game, yeah.
Yeah, savage game, like, and I think the Rock was sent off after, not the Rock, sorry, your man, the goalie,
Dunlog.
why is his name gone for me?
Dunlog,
yeah, Jesus, sorry, was sent off after I think midway through the first half or something like that, or second half or something. Was it him with the Rock? Dunlog, I thought was sent off.
Dunlog got sent off in that
yeah,
game.
it was him, because I know they're clubmates, yeah, and I know the Rock got split, and I don't know, maybe half time I was just saying something I shouldn't have said, to be honest. But
Proved.
yeah, moving on.
Coming up on 15 years, I'm pretty impressed that he holds a grudge that long. If
not, I know, I'm saying it for the crack, do you know what I mean? But yeah, that follows me. You're laughing. I'm laughing there, Murphy, when you're on about Eddie Brennan. I can laugh at it now, let's say. I wasn't laughing at the time. But Eddie Brennan hitting lads jostle, like, you know, we played a league game. This is the 08 league as well, league final against Tip. And I said, I go out now and I'll take a free. And as I'm going out, I hit the free, I scored the free. And as I'm coming back in, I hit Lar Corbell's shoulder. And I'm saying, cheers, I'm on it now, boy. I'm feeling good now. I'm 19 or 20 years of age. Next ball comes in, I misread it entirely. Goes through my legs, goal. I said, fuck this, I'm not going to show under legs again. Yeah, that didn't go too well for me, Murph. young and dumb.
Right, before we get your final predictions, because I know there's James has already opted for Limerick here. Dahi Conway's in contact. I'll throw this one to you, Paul. Do Kilkenny have the subs to keep the intensity going for 70 to 75 minutes? A lot of energy is going to go into the first 50 minutes of the game at the weekend.
Yeah, they do. I've no doubt about it. Like, I mean, any of the teams I've seen for Kilkenny, like, half the time I'm wondering why isn't such and such a player starting or so on, which is a good complaint. Like, if you have players on the bench, any team that's named, you kind of ask, why isn't this player starting? Why isn't that player starting? Like, if you look at the few players on the bench, let's say potentially from the last day, okay, Conor Fogarty was injured, but let's say the team that started last day and we have every other player then is available after that. You know, you look at the bench there where you have Killian Buckley, like Walter Welch came on. David Blanchfield was like young hurler of the league or hurler of the league, whatever. He was left half back of the league anyway. Great player, and only came on for a few minutes the last day. There's loads of players there that could certainly, that are capable of doing any job that Brian has in store for him. Like Richie Hogan was on the bench last day, wasn't used again. There's so many players there, James Maher, Alan Murphy. There's lots of lads that, you know, it's like a Swiss Army knife in terms of whatever job you want them to do. There's a player there that I fully know can do the job that they'll want to do. If it's a simple case of, for Kilkenny lasting the 70 minutes and you know, staying with Limerick that day, Kilkenny, for me, looking at them and looking at all the games they've played this year, whatever, if people want to argue about hurling teams or whatever, they're absolutely on a par with any team, if not better, in terms of conditioning. Like, if we look at the lads, and I went down to the river there one of the days, went down to Conor Fogarty just to go for an old recovery. Hadn't seen him in a few weeks, said to go down, and here was a few of the lads, Eoin, Cody, Mossy Keogh and Conor Brown, all the boys were inside in it, and like, sure, all the boys were in the tops off, and I was going, Jesus Christ, these lads are huge. They weren't this big when I left the panel now, but they're big now. But the condition and the shape that they're in, you know, if them boys can't go 70 minutes, there's no team in the country can do it. So I'd have no fear of whatever 15 Kilkenny put out, that 10 of them will last the 70 minutes, no problem. And whatever 5 then Kilkenny bring in just to, I suppose, give the extra shot in the arm going down the home straight, I've no fear about it. They're in exceptional condition. And a lot of credit has to be given to strength and conditioning coach Mickey Comfort again, because I'm sure Limerick have their, you know, strength and conditioning staff that are in, you know, they have them. Obviously, we've seen the pictures of how you know, great condition they're in, but I have no doubt, and just seeing the Kilkenny lads, the nick they're in at the moment, they'll last the 70 minutes, 75 minutes, 80 minutes, whatever it's going to be. And I'd have no fears from that point of view of lasting the rate with this Limerick team.
Yeah, I did enjoy David Herity last week. I'm not sure if you guys caught it. He had 2 wonderful pop culture references. He was talking about Brian Cody and Cody being the overseer of everything that happens in Kilkenny training, and he compared him to Sauron's eye in The Lord of the Rings. And the other one he had was for Richie Hogan, Skehill, where he talked about effectively the line from The Dark Knight, the Batman movie, where You stay around long enough to be the hero, then you become the villain. And he was saying possibly after what happened in 2019, if Richie Hogan gets on the pitch and has a telling contribution against Limerick, maybe he can become the hero once again. I thought there were two very good references. I don't know if Richie Hogan gets on. I mean, all talk is, Skehill, and I know Paul will have to probably keep his counsel on this, even if he does know if Richie Hogan is going well in training. Like we saw only a couple of years ago in the Leinster final against Galway, what he can do if he's sprung from the bench. He's been starved of game time this year, but the reports seem to be that he's going quite well in training.
Well, first things first, like, is the man fit? Can you tell us that much more?
He is, yeah, he's fit, yeah.
So if he's fit,
Richie Hogan's been fit for 6 months.
Why is he not playing then?
Fuck.
Well, I can't answer that question. No, but one thing I would say, and it's not speaking out of turn, like Richie.
You can't or you won't. Which is it?
Well, I don't know the reason why he's not playing. That's the bottom line. Like,
you're too straight, Murphy. You're too straight.
Well, I could speculate as to why he's not playing, but like,
speculate.
That's what we're after. That's what we're after.
I don't know. Like Richie has had injuries. Maybe there's a little bit of a kind of a if we play him, will we be taking him off, or is there a kind of a predisposition there to kind of go, maybe overly analyse the injuries he's had, like instead of just going he's either fit or he's not fit, we have him on the bench or we don't have him on the bench. We definitely Kilkenny could have gotten more game time into Richie Hogan over the last while, and I think it would have been certainly a fruitful thing to do to get more game time into him. But look, let's say for the Clare match, when Richie Hogan was named on the bench, like the amount of people that were asking me, well, will Richie be starting? And never mind, will he come on? This is a ploy. He's going to be starting. But if he's not starting, we're definitely going to see 15 or 20 minutes. The funny thing is, against in the Clare game, I think if that game was a draw or Kilkenny were down by 2 points, I think Richie Hogan would have come on. But the fact that Kilkenny were miles ahead, I think Brian kind of opted, I don't know, maybe to throw on, like he threw on a few different players onto the pitch. And I was going, it's kind of a funny anomaly there that, if the game was in the clutches, to be won, I think we actually would have seen Richie Hogan, because he's one of those players that's capable of turning the tide for you. But because it wasn't required, maybe we didn't see him. But Richie's been fit for months, and that's not speaking of turn. Like I said, he's heard club matches for us. He's fit. He's ready to rock. He will start full forward next Sunday if he gives a jersey, and he will give you everything he has in the tank. So I like I said, I'd be speculating if I said maybe why he hasn't. I mean, I don't know what the players see in training. Again, even yesterday after the game, lads were asking me about, like the footballers were asking me about Richie, because talk around Kilkenny is he is flying in training. Again, I'd never ask any lads who's going well, who's not going well, because you know yourself, James, it's not your place to do that. And because of the forum that we have of podcasts and doing interviews, you don't want to be asking lads this to make them think that the only reason you're talking to them is that you want to get a little nugget of information so you can go back. It's a trust thing, yeah. So I don't ask lads that. But I have lads coming up to me in Kilkenny. You might meet a lad for a pint, and all I say is, I hear Richie Hogan's destroying lads in training, and that's what I'm hearing. So I don't know what the story is after that. I won't speculate. I don't know what the story is. I know he's fit. By all accounts, he's flying it in training. So after that, your guess is as good as mine. Maybe David Herity has a good movie analogy to describe the situation, but I don't know. I don't know the situation at the moment.
Maybe David Herity is the all-seeing eye and not Brian Cody. Predictions then, James Skehill. You've already said you're edging towards a Limerick win, by 3 or 4 points?
By 3, yeah. I'm just, to be honest, I'm picking that margin out of my hole, Will, to be honest. I couldn't lie. I tell you, it could be 3, it could be 2, Kilkenny could win it. It's a fine margin. I'm just going to say Limerick by 3. I've no scientific data to put behind it, okay?
That's definitely going to be quoted by Tommy Walsh at some point. Go on, Paul, where are you going?
I'll go Kilkenny by 4.
4?
Oh, Murph.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it now. There's been times where I felt I held back a little bit in terms of saying where I think, how much a team is going to win by. Like, and one of the big regrets I had last year was with the All-Ireland in terms of Limerick and Cork. I thought Limerick would win that match well now, but at the time I was saying, Limerick will win or whatever. But I couldn't get over when people were saying that I thought Cork was going to win. I just didn't feel that at all, But afterwards, when they saw the big beat, and I was there going, maybe I was a little bit too kind. I think I said at the time they would have won by 5 or 6 or whatever like that. But look, Kilkenny, Limerick, I genuinely believe at the moment that, from what I'm seeing with Kilkenny, that they can poke holes in this Limerick team. And again, it goes back to, the Limerick team that we saw in their performances last year. It's not up to the same pitch as it has been this year, and that's been a very that's clutching at straws there now in terms of picking out or splitting hairs even, picking out in terms of their performances. But I do believe if, let's say, Kilkenny pick holes in that Limerick game plan, they go at them. if you give Kilkenny a chance to go ahead by 2 or 3 points, I think what did Kilkenny do really well is game management and turn the screw so that they go ahead by 2 scores. Not that they leave the game coming down the home straight by 1 point or 2 points. I think they'll be clever enough to get it to a position where they'll maybe be ahead by 2 points coming into the last few minutes, and they get to 2 scores to turn it out to 4 points. Because I think Limerick, in the last 2 or 3 minutes, if Kilkenny are ahead, have to push up, have to go that little bit further, have to look for scores, and they'll leave the back door open then for Kilkenny to go down the other end and knock over 2 scores. So if I'm being very specific about it, I'll go Kilkenny by the 2 score margin by 4 points.
Okay, that's very, very specific. I do like that.
Very specific, yeah.
Does that mean, Paul, you were kind of guilty of that thing that often happens to pundits in their first year or so of doing punditry, where you're like, I don't want to put too many noses out of joint, so I'll go, Cork will give them a good run, even though in the back of your head you're thinking this could be 10 or 15?
Yeah, kind of. You're feeling it out. Certainly, last year was my first year out in the world of punditry or whatever you want to call it. But I did at the start. I was trying to. It takes a while to break down the road away that shield as a player you had for years of where you were given these middle of the road answers so you get out of the way, and like this thing that people give out about that players don't give enough interest in answers. So it took a few months to, I suppose, break that down maybe. But again, yeah, it kind of, there's a thing as well of before a game when you're asked your opinion. You also don't want your opinion to come back. Well, no, there was a time, I don't care now. But like last year, I was maybe a little bit concerned about going, oh, geez, what if I'm wrong here and I'm wrong by 10 or 15 points? I don't want to be that far out. So it's better to be conservative in those situations. But now, I don't really care, to be honest, because Skehill will just take the limelight. He'll say something cracked anyway. So I'll let him just. I can say Kilkenny by 4, and Skehill will get the headlines because he's picked it out of his hole, as he said. So.
You see, Murph, I'm listening to everything you're saying, and I'm like, Jesus, I couldn't give a fuck what people said the first year. Maybe I need to roll back. Maybe I need to be a bit more conservative, like Murph. Be more measured, like Murph.
We'll meet each other halfway. We'll do so. I'll be a bit more random every so often. I don't know.
I'm gonna be more measured now. Yeah,
good man.
Don't worry.
Bit late for that now. Last game of the year, but fair play to you.
Better late than never,
episode what, 21, Will, is it? And James is going, we have one more after this, and James decided, right, I'm going to be a bit more conservative.
Don't worry, lads, when you're right 52% of the time, you're wrong 48% of the time, which is the thing you got to remember. Now, Dtux101 sent a pretty random Friday night tweet, which I was looking at, and basically what he suggested that we would do for a bit of crack, and he said for a quiet week, but then I was like, right, I was sick in bed at the time, and I thought, right, I'm going to have a go at this team anyway. So unfortunately, I got to jump ahead on you guys. But basically, the parameters are you have to pick players who are within 30 miles of your home club. So Google Maps was getting a bit of a hammering here to make 100% sure that players were inside the 30 miles and so on. So I'm going to give my team first, and then I'll throw the floor open to both of you. Unfortunately, Self and James are not going to be able to compete with the sheer amount of All-Ireland medals that Murphy's going to be able to do, given where he lives in Kilkenny. But hey, I think our teams are interesting because we've got 3 provinces and 3 different counties in them. So, my 15 then. I've got 2 young hurlers of the year and 2 hurlers of the year into mine. So happy enough with that. And it's all-stars 1 to 15 as well. So goalkeeper is going to be Stephen Byrne, Kilcormac, Callaghy and Offaly. Full back line, Ollie Canning, Portumna and Galway. Kevin Kinahan, Sir Kieran and Offaly at fullback. Martin Hanamy of St. Rynas and Offaly in the other corner. And I've tried to pick the players here in their actual positions as well. We talked about the All-Stars a few weeks ago. They've got Brian Whelan of Burr and Offaly, Brendan Maher of Borsaley and Tipperary, and Kevin Martin of Tullamore and Offaly is my half-back line. Tommy Dunn of Toomevara and Tipperary in midfield alongside Johnny Pilkington of Burr and Offaly. John Troy of Lusma and Offaly along with Bonner Maher of Lura and Tipperary, and Johnny Dooley of Sir Kieran and Offaly is going to be my half forward line. Johnny's brother Billy in one of the corners, and you've got Damien Hayes of Portumna and Galway in the other corner, and a certain Joe Canning is going to play at full forward on my team. So that's my 15.
That's good. That's very strong.
Skehill, I reckon our 15s probably aren't going to be overly different here.
Hold on a second now.
Yeah.
Less the comments in the comments there, right? Okay. Very strong, very strong. Until you come with a fucking nuclear bomb of a team now in a second.
5 minutes ago we talked about you being a little bit more conservative. You, Jesus Christ, you didn't even keep it up for 5 minutes, It's called being sound, alright? It's nice to be nice, James.
Oh, that's what my mother always said to me. Right, that's the good team though, in fairness, Will. Now, I must say, right, for people that don't know, I'm in Capitaglia, which is East Galway. So, the 30-mile radius, it just kind of limits me a small bit for for hurling competitions, put it that way to you. So I can only go south. I can only go
out in the Ireland Islands direction, like, is it? Or
I'll shoot the breeze. So I have Colin Cannon, Kinvara Galway, Pete Finnerty, Mulla and Galway, Dahi Burke, Turlock and Galway, Ollie Kenning. I have Brian Whelan, Burren Offaly, Tony Keady, Clymer Daly and Galway, and I have Brendan Bugler, Whitegate and Clare. He snuck in a bit like you and Brendan Maher will. He just snuck in by, I'd say his room is in the 30-mile radius and the bathroom is outside it.
Yeah, he was 200 feet for Barcelona to get them inside, but go on.
I have David Burke from St Thomas's in Galway, Johnny Pickleton, Burr, Galway. I have Kevin Broderick, Abijanari in Galway, Joe Cooney Senior, Sarsfields in Galway, Bonner Maher, Laura, Damien Hayes, Joe Canning, Conor Wheeler. And we take on the bestie. Our lads. So Murph, you have to go now, have you? Okay,
I have to go.
Bye.
There's a beer garden with Kilkenny footballers calling there.
Look, your Wi-Fi's going there, Murph. We'll put him off quickly.
I actually made one amendment there because when I thought of a player that I was like, I was having wicked hard times with my forwards here. And to be fair, again, a disclaimer to the team I sent to you yesterday. I was driving into Rathcoole yesterday on the team bus. There was lads singing Sweet Caroline and Everton, and I gave you 15 just to get you away from me because you were texting me away there. But yeah, so I'll make an amendment and I'll let you. Yeah, you'll know which.
Who's the amendment like?
Who's the enforcement that comes out here?
I don't want to drop out. No, I'm not going to say the player because I don't want to drop him out if he thought I was in my first team, but now I'm dropping him. So I don't. But anyway, in the goal, Eoin Murphy, Glenmore, Mick Kavanagh, Freshford, Noel Hickey, Donegan, Jackie Tyrrell, James Stevens, Tommy Welsh, Tullerone, Brian Hogan, O'Loughlin's, JJ Delaney, the Fenians. I'm going to put Richie Hogan and Mick Fennelly middle of the field. Richie Power, Henry Shefflin, TJ Reid, Eddie Brennan, DJ Kerry, Owen Kelly.
Jesus Christ.
And
have you actually clocked up the stats on this? Like All Irelands and All Stars there.
Yeah, there is 111 All Irelands there.
That's
All Stars.
Murph, I was counting, and I got to your half back line, and I got over 40 or 5 All Irelands. Well, I just give up.
I was at 20 there by the time I was on Noel Hickey, so I was wondering what I said. I'm going to slow it down here. Now, if we're talking Monday, hopefully now I'll be able to add another 3 All Irelands to that one there as well. So hopefully we'll be up to 114 by next Monday. So I will see. But yeah, look, and as well, I didn't go fully Kilkenny. Owen Kelly's in there as well. Give credit to the man. Played him a few weeks ago against Mullen, and he's still he actually broke a hurl. We played Mullen a few weeks ago in a match, and myself and Owen were actually at one stage too. I was centre back, he was centre forward. He broke a hurl, and now the way he broke it, so let's say like he broke it like a splice basically. And I am saying hurl as well, not hurley. It is a hurl, and so he broke it like a splice, not in half. So there's a big lump gone out of it from the boss. And a few of our boys were running after him, and he went and he rose the ball with half a boss basically, had a look around, took a solo, look around again, and then pucked the ball like the boss was fully working, like there was a full boss there, pucked the ball across about 20 yards to a fella, and they put the ball over the bar. So Owen Kelly, whatever age he is now, I'm sure he's late 30s anyway, is still operating for Mullen. So have to give him his credit there, and definitely in my team. Jesus, if he's in 30 miles, Owen Kelly's on any team.
Is he still running the show for them then at club level? Like, is he still taking the frees and?
Yeah, he is. Well, he was taking the frees that night anyway, and he was clever. We were there, and obviously it was a challenge match, and there was lots of players being played. It was actually a great match as well, great evening for it. But he got a free on this kind of close to the sideline, nearly on the 21, and one of his own players, a kind of a younger fellow, was running in towards the goal, and Kelly let her roar at him. And as the lad turned around, the ball was coming at him because our lad wasn't marking him anymore. And sure, they hung it up in the net. So the hurling brain, which is a huge thing. Never mind, a lot of people talk about the fitness and the physicality. The brain and the hands are the huge thing, obviously, with hurling. But it's all there for Owen Kelly at the moment. So I'm not sure in terms of championship. Is he out centre forward or where is he playing? But he just seemed to have a free roll that night. But he's still just great to see the likes of Owen Kelly still playing for Mullen.
Yeah, absolute legend of the game. If you want to take part, by the way, particularly in the YouTube, just stick it into the comments. So the rule is the players that you pick have to be within 30 miles of your home club. Outside of that, be as creative as you want with who you pick. But interesting to see where some of the listeners are going to come from. Particularly those who are in Munster might have very different selections, very different areas they're picking from. Skehill and I particularly benefiting from being close to the borders of counties.
And as well, we need to put in 3 provinces. You can't just have 1 province.
So you're just making Murph's team is null and void, is it?
I'm just thinking geographically, can you get to the 3rd province?
Geographically, what province do you want me to go to? The 30 miles from
so Murph, you're out, Murph. You're out. Sorry. Get off the bus.
Get off the bus, right? So
take your 116 All-Irelands and put them
just make up a few rules there that makes me stop picking players. And you can't have players like, if you know, so you can't have lads with a H in their name. So Henry's out there. You can't have lads with, you know, syllables. TJ, JJ, get all them at DJ. Get them out. Done. You have to have full names.
Not out.
Most importantly, Paul, before we let you back to the celebration of the footballers, you've got your ticket for this weekend, do you?
I have a ticket. I haven't put my hands on it yet, but I'm.
Wished. Sorry, boss. Well, I saw Mr. O'Donoghue and Mr. Paddy Andrews up at the match yesterday.
Yeah.
Will. Where are the three of us going up there?
There you go. They're in the press box. Yeah.
Where are the three of us going Sunday?
Oh. You can divert that towards the weekend producers on Off the Ball, who've probably given the tickets away to Tommy Welsh already.
You may send an email to complaints@offtheball and explain who you are, the whole lot. Yeah, because
I hope that website doesn't exist.
I'll be sitting in the middle of the crowd, in the middle of a Kilkenny crowd, hopefully somewhere anyway. So I don't care, as long as I have eyes on the match. I couldn't care less where I am.
That is episode 21 of the Hurling Pod, lads. Looking forward to the breakdown of the All-Ireland final, and good luck to Kilkenny at the weekend as well, Paul, in the final, and good luck to James in your prediction that Limerick are going to win. Lads, we'll chat to you next week.
See you, lads. Good luck.